Donald Trump won a virtual coin toss against Kamala Harris ahead of their presidential debate, but that was essentially his only victory. From the start of the debate, Harris took charge, walking over to Trump's podium and essentially compelling him to shake her hand. She set the tone for the entire confrontation, which took place just 8 weeks before Election Day. From Harris' perspective, the night couldn't have gone much better. She appeared energetic and presented an optimistic vision for the future. In contrast, Trump appeared agitated, launching into rants about America's decline, and struggled to stay on form. Harris, who has sometimes faced challenges in unscripted moments, delivered one of the most commanding performances of her political career. Meanwhile, Trump, who had earlier predicted he would follow Mike Tyson's famous saying, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth," found himself caught off guard by Harris' attacks and was unable to land many punches of his own. While debates don't always determine election outcomes, Harris' strong showing seemed likely to expand her support base. On the other hand, Trump didn't make significant efforts to alter voter perceptions of his divisive policies, particularly in swing states. Often, he seemed fixated on his previous term and even longed to be debating his former rival, Joe Biden. It's important to remember, however, that debate victories don't always lead to election wins. It can take time for debate outcomes to resonate with voters, and sometimes candidates judged to have lost on stage still end up winning the election. For example, both Trump in 2016 and President George W. Bush in 2004 were considered to have lost debates, but went on to win. Even though Harris' performance energized Democrats, Trump still maintained an advantage on key issues like the economy and immigration. Many voters, waiting for the full benefits of post-pandemic economic recovery, may not see the debate as a deciding factor. Furthermore, Trump's harsh rhetoric on immigration and crime, though exaggerated, has proven effective in the past. Unexpected events in the weeks leading up to the election could also sway the outcome. Though it's too early to know if Harris' debate performance will translate into electoral momentum, her campaign is likely hopeful that she has gained favor with the small number of swing voters who will ultimately decide the race. Harris came prepared, methodically achieving her debate objectives. She directly appealed to the American public, vowing to ease economic burdens, and successfully baited Trump into outbursts that reinforced her portrayal of him as unfit for another term. Her disciplined approach paid off, as she avoided any major missteps. Ultimately, Harris demonstrated why the Democratic Party was right to choose her as the nominee, dismantling Trump's character, policies, and legacy in a way that Biden had struggled to do. Even pop superstar Taylor Swift, whose endorsement was falsely claimed by Trump's team using AI last month, voiced her support for Harris and Tim Walz immediately after the debate. Throughout the debate, Harris maintained her composure while Trump grew increasingly frustrated. One of her most memorable moments came when she rested her chin on her hand and simply laughed in response to Trump's agitation, a gesture that may become iconic on social media. On a key issue at Trump's fixation on his rallies, Harris got the upper hand when Trump responded defensively rather than attacking her on immigration, one of her most vulnerable topics. This highlighted a recurring pattern throughout the night. Harris left room for Trump to fall into his own traps, and he repeatedly did. Trump's inability to resist taking the bait exposed him as more self-destructive than threatening to Harris. This was most evident when he repeated an unfounded, racially charged claim about Haitian immigrants. Harris, seeing her accusations of extremism confirmed, simply shook her head in response. While Trump attempted to draw Harris into debates about race and gender, she refrained from engaging directly. Instead, she condemned Trump's history of divisive rhetoric, including his past calls for the execution of the Central Park Five and false claims about President Obama's birthplace. She painted him as someone who exploits racial tensions for political gain, stating, "I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president, who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people." That said, Harris wasn't flawless. She avoided answering her first question on whether Americans are better off than 4 years ago, and she sidestepped questions about the deaths of American soldiers in Afghanistan in 2021, a focal point. However, her ability to smoothly transition back to her talking points kept Trump from capitalizing on her evasions. Trump, for his part, failed to mount a cohesive attack on Harris or articulate a clear vision for the future. Much like Biden in an earlier debate, he struggled to keep his opponent off balance. His arguments often veered into obscure right-wing talking points, which might resonate with his core supporters, but didn't appeal to more moderate voters. Trump's team had successfully lobbied for microphones to be muted when candidates weren't speaking, aiming to limit Harris' fact-checking and Trump's interruptions. Ironically, this tactic worked against Trump, as he was forced to remain silent while Harris delivered pointed critiques, a rare occurrence for an ex-president in a public setting. Body language is often telling during debates. While Trump scowled and seemed visibly tense, Harris delivered her attacks with a confident smile, locking eyes with the audience at home. One of Trump's biggest failures was his inability to highlight Harris' main weakness, her difficulty with unscripted moments. He created few opportunities to put her on the defensive. His strongest point came only at the debate's conclusion when he criticized Harris for failing to accomplish what she now promises after being in office for over 3 years. On the contentious issue of abortion, Trump also faltered. He both claimed credit for appointing the conservative Supreme Court majority that overturned Roe v. Wade and falsely asserted that most Americans had always wanted abortion rights left to the states. This opened the door for Harris to deliver a stinging rebuke. "It's insulting to the women of America." Trump's most effective moment came near the end of the debate when he criticized Harris and Biden over their handling of the war in Ukraine, warning of the potential for nuclear escalation and positioning himself as the only candidate capable of preventing. His pledge to end the war may resonate more with heartland voters than Biden's promise of indefinite support for Ukraine. However, Harris countered that Trump's plan would only result in a peace agreement that benefits Vladimir Putin. Even as he sparred with Harris over Ukraine, Trump seemed to long for an earlier election, one that had been more enjoyable for him. Harris summed it up perfectly when she said, "You're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me," a statement that may capture Trump's disorientation and ultimately define the 2024 election.